So, hello everyone. So, before starting, I would like to tell you all that please take a pen and paper so that you can make the notes side by side. So, here we begin. So, first is let's see law. Law is divided into two parts. It is civil law and criminal law. And the same civil law is also divided into two parts, that is contracts and torts. So today we'll be covering torts. So here we begin. So first torts. So let's see. Torts definition in Latin word is tortum, which means to twist. So now let's see actual definition for torts. So it is the conduct, or you can say an act that violates the legal rights of an individual. So let me explain you this through an example. So the example is defamation. So defamation means that speaking in a way that belittle the other person. So let me explain you. So in as per Article 19, you have been the right to speech, but it's not absolute. So if you're speaking in a way that hurts the other person, so that is defamation. Okay. So another example for tort is trespass. So trespass means entering without permission in others' land. So as per Article 21, you have right to privacy. So if you are entering in someone's house or like in someone's playground without your permission, so that is trespass and that will come under torts. Okay, so now let's see some property for torts. So first is it is not applicable in India, and second is it is uncodified, and there is a word in torts that is tortfeasor, so which means tort doer. Okay, and if you see source for torts, then that is common law judgments of courts. So what is the legal action? So that is payback or compensation to the plaintiff. So now you might be wondering what is plaintiff. So there are two words that are plaintiff and defendant. So plaintiff is the person who filed the case. Okay, and defendant is the person against whom the file is placed. Okay, so let's see. Complainer and who wants compensation, and defendants against whom the plaintiff has filed the case. So now let's see the difference between civil law and criminal law. So in civil law, the act is done between the individual. And in criminal law, it affects the public at large. Okay. Okay, then in civil law, there is negligence and defamation. So first let's see what is negligence and defamation. So for negligence, you can see it occurs when there is lack of care. So let's take example. A building is being constructed and a brick falls on the person passing. So this is the case of negligence. And for second, defamation, when a person speaks something that harms the reputation of another person. Example, a person A speaks that a person B is a thief in a marriage crowd, and the case is that B is innocent. So that is the case for defamation. And in criminal law, it's murder and theft. Okay, so now in this it is wrong, in this it is crime or an offense. Okay, so in this, the person who files the case is known as the plaintiff, and in this case, the plaintiff files the case to the lawyer, and in this, directly to the police, and that is public prosecutor. Okay, so in this, intention is not important, but in this, intention is important. in this civil proceeding is known as suit, and in this criminal proceeding is known as prosecution. Okay, and in this case compensation is given, and in this case punishment is given. And in this case we'll see they are liable or not liable, and in this case we'll see they are guilty or not guilty. So now let's see classification for torts. So there are 3 classification. So first one is personal wrong, then second one is property wrong, and third one is personal plus property wrong. So now let's see personal wrong. So in this it is injury to the person only. And so first let's see for body. So for body, first one is assault. See, first you all can write it, then I will explain you one by one. Okay, so second is battery, and third is false imprisonment, and fourth is nervous shock. Then for dignity, libel, second is slander, and third is malicious prosecution. So then for personal wrong, property wrong. So now let's see for property wrong. So in this, injury to the property only. So now let's see. So property wrong are of 2 types. First one is movable. So in this you can see example of trespass to goods or conversion. Then second type is immovable. So in this it is trespass to land. So now let's see for personal plus property wrong. So that is negligence, and second is nuisance. So now let me explain you for personal wrong. So first one is assault. So in assault what happens? It's like that there is no physical touch. But a person makes another person fear through gestures such as showing fist so that the other person feels scared, or showing the slap, but no actual physical touch. And in battery what happens? There is physical touch. such as slapping, kicking, and many more. Okay, so now in false imprisonment, you can take the example that a person was found innocent but still put behind the bar. Okay, so now let's see for nervous shock. So in this you can see, so in nervous shock you can see that there occurred some shocking event and that caused harm to mental peace. So for example, you can see there occurred an accident and a pregnant lady saw, and there was a stillborn child. So this is the example of nervous shock. So now let's see dignity part. So libel and slander, and you can see that these both are part of defamation. So now let's see the difference between this. So in slander we have to see that these are non-permanent and these are words or gestures, and you can see that they are oral or live spoken. And in this you can see that they are permanent form, and these are done through drawings, write-ups and statue. So they are written form. So now let me explain you. So as you know that defamation is when we are speaking something and it harms the reputation of another person. So that can be in written form or oral form. So if they are in written form, so they will it will come in libel, and if they are in oral form, so it will come in slander. So you can see if someone have defamed the other person through writing in the magazines and all, then it will come in this. Or if someone has defamed the other person during the speech in the crowd or something, so it will come in this form. So now let's go for this. So movable, trespass to goods or conversion, and immovable, trespass to land. So let's see what is trespass. So entering in someone's land without permission. So trespass to goods or conversion. So in this you can take the example that a necklace was found on the road and a person A picks up and knowing that it belongs to another person but still says that this belongs to him. So you can say this is the case of goods conversion. Okay, now for seeing trespass to land, so you can see that A group of children were playing in the playground. During the play, their ball goes to the house nearby, and the child goes to the land without permission to get his ball. So this is the case for trespass to land. Okay. So now for negligence and nuisance. So let's see for negligence. So there is lack of care. So I've already explained you, but still I'm giving the example. So you can see that there was a building being constructed. Building construction, and a brick falls on a person A. So that is negligence, because over here the person who was constructing the building has the duty to take care of the materials, but he did not take care of the material over here, and it hurted the person A. So it is negligence. And for nuisance, so in this it is unreasonable use of property. So how? Let's take an example, like a party was being conducted next door, and sound was high volume. Person A had an exam next day and could not study due to loud music. So you can see that a person A, there was a party next door to person A's house, and the music that was played was of very high volume, and he could not study. So you can say that it is nuisance, because the person was misusing his property by disturbing the other person. So now let's see essentials for torts. So first is some act or omission, and second is result in some legal damage. So let's see, for example, some act. Some act means activities that you were not supposed to do but you have done. Okay. And an omission, activities that you have to do but not done. Okay, and if we do this and there has to be some legal damage occurred to the other person, then there will be tort occurred. So now let's see legal maxim. So first one is injuria sine demnum. So this refers to injury. Sine means without, and demnum means damage. So now let's first see what this injury means over here and what does damage means over here. So injury refers to violation of legal right. Okay, and damage refers to any kind of loss that is material, like loss of money or loss of any goods. So now let's understand this maxim through an example. Let's take the case of SB versus White. So in this case what's happened is there is a valid voter named SVB who goes to the voting booth, but the returning officer refuses to allow him to vote. So in this case you can see that there is no loss of material, but there is violation of his legal right, as he has the right to vote, but the returning officer did not allow him to vote. So in this case you can write that there was violation of legal right. Violation. Okay. So the second maxim is damnum sine injuria. Okay. So this maxim means damage without injury. So now let's understand this maxim through an example. Let's take the case of Gloucester Grammar School case. So in this case what happens is that the school teacher, which school teacher? This school teacher. Okay, so the school teacher left the school and set up his own school, and the teacher charges very low. So charges are very low. So what happens that the children started to join this school. So over here you can say that there was monetary loss. Monetary means money loss. Okay, and over here there is no legal injury, so over here there is damage. Okay, monetary loss, damage. So today we'll be studying general defenses. So the first one is voluntary non fit injuria. So in this case what happened is that when a person willingly give consent to the risk. So let's understand this case through an example. So let's see that there is a boy named A who is playing volleyball with his friends and he gets hit by the ball. So in this case a boy cannot suit a file because he voluntary given consent for playing volleyball. So how you can write it? Over here you can write it like person voluntary subjects himself to some risk. Okay, so for example, a boy named A playing volleyball with his friends and get hit by a ball. Hit by a ball. So in this case, no suit will be filed. So two essentials in this case are, first one is knowledge and second one is consent. Okay, so now let's see the second one is plaintiff, the wrong doer. So in this case, you know that plaintiff is the one who files the case. So when it is plaintiff own mistake, then the case cannot be filed. Okay, so you can write it, plaintiff cannot take defense if he or she was wrong on his or her part. So there is one legal magazine in this. So it is turpi causa non auditor action. So what does this mean is, no action is equals to immoral cause. So the next one is act of God. So in act of God, you can take the example of floods or an earthquake, or you can take drought, etc. So over here you can take as natural forces, and second is without human intervention. So you can take the example as a person A has to deliver goods to person B, but there occurred heavy rain, due to which transports was stopped. So you can see over here there was no human intervention, and due to the heavy rain the goods could not be delivered. So in this you can say it is act of God. So now let's see what are essentials in this case. Essentials. So the first one is natural force. And the second one is occurrence of extraordinary event. And the third one is cannot be anticipated. So the next one is inevitable accident. So in this case what happens is that this was an expected event. Unexpected. Okay, so first one is could not be foreseen, and second one is due care and reasonable caution. So in this case what happens is that you did not know that this event is going to happen beforehand. So let's take an example. What happens is that there was a medical emergency, and while driving the tree fell due to the heavy storm. So the car went skiding to the black ice, and due to which the person could not see. So this was an unexpected, because we did not know beforehand that this is going to happen. So you can write a sudden emergency, a sudden medical emergency, and a tree fell on the car, and the car skiding on a patch of black ice, due to which impossible to see beforehand. So the next one is private defense, or you can say it is self defense. So in this case, what happens is that you did some act to protect yourself. Second one is your property. And third one is someone else. Fourth one is someone else's property. Someone else's property. So let's understand this through an example, that there was a person A who was running with material of person B, and when the person B caught him, he just hit him with a rod. So in this case, you cannot sue B because he did that for his self defense. So how you can write it over here? You can write it like this. So A was running with material of B, and B caught him and hit him with a rod. So no sue against B, because he did it in his private defense. So the next one is mistake. So there are two types of mistake. So the first one is mistake of fact, and the second one is mistake of law. So you can say this can be unexcused, but mistake of law cannot be excused. So there is one legal maxim in this, you can say, that is ignotia juris non accusant. So what does this mean is, this means ignore, and ignore of this means law, and is not an excuse. So you can say that mistake of law cannot be excused. Okay, so the next one is necessity. So what does this mean is that you did something out of necessity. Second one is to avoid a greater harm. So let's understand this through an example. So there was a person A who was driving his car and his brakes get failed. So there was so in one side there was a crowd standing, and on the other side you can say only two person was standing. So he took the car to that side where only two person was standing. So you can say that he took there so that he can avoid greater harm. So now let's write it. You can write it like this, that a person A driving a car, his brakes get failed and a crowd of person, only two person. So he took his car where two person were standing to avoid greater harm. So hello everyone, today we'll be studying strict liability and absolute liability. So first we'll be studying strict liability. So in strict liability what happens is that person will be liable even if he was not negligent or if he did not intend to harm the other person. So how you can write it? You can write it over here. A person will be liable even if not negligent or not intended to harm the other person. So now let's understand this truant case, that is Ryland versus Fletcher. So in this case what happened is that a person A opens up a mill and he employed some employers to construct a reservoir. So while constructing they did not notice disused shafts and forgot to block it. Then later water was filled and broke some shafts and the area was flooded. So in this case A will be liable even if he was not negligent and he did not intend to hurt anybody, but it was a mistake of employers, but still A will be liable in this case. So you might be wondering why A will be liable, because in this case you can write due to the negligence of the independent contractor. So now let's see conditions for strict liability. So the first one is dangerous thing. Second one, natural use. And third one is escape. Fourth one is cause damage. So now let's see what are some hazardous things. So the first one is dynamite and explosive, and then it is radioactive material, then hazardous chemicals, wild animals, and domestic animals. So now let's study absolute liability. So in this case, what happens is that a person will be responsible for something without any excuses or exception. So you can write it over here as a person being responsible for something without any excuses or exception. You can take the example of MC Mehta versus Union of India, and that is oleum gas leak case of 1987, which took place in Bhopal. So let's see what happened in this case. So in this case, what happened is that oleum gas was leaked from the plant, and due to which many people were killed. So the lawyer MC Mehta went to the Supreme Court and filed an PL. So what was the case result? So result was in favor of MC Mehta, and so the highlights were that we have to protect our environment, and industries that will be engaged in any of the hazardous activities will be absolutely liable for any harm that is caused in the society, and they have to pay some compensation. So this is what happened in this case. So today we'll be studying defamation. So what happens in defamation is that we harm the other person's reputation, and so there are some points you can write. Its reputation is important, that we have harmed the other person's reputation, and in this case intention to defame is not important. Okay. And the third one is that it should be communicated to the third party. So let's understand this through an example. So a person A writes a letter to person B in Bengali, and a person A knows that B does not know Bengali. A knows that B does not know Bengali, but still he writes, and he writes that B is a thief. And since B did not know Bengali, so he tells C to read the letter. So in this case, you can see that reputation of B was harmed in front of C. So over here, C is the third party and reputation of B was defamed. Okay. So now let's see, there are two types of defamation. Okay. Defamation are of two types. So first one is slander and the second one is libel. Okay. So what happens in slander is and in libel. Okay. So let's see that they are not non-permanent, and words or gestures. In this, defamation is done through words or gestures, and that means it can be oral or spoken. Okay. And in libel, what happens is that is permanent form, and it can be done through drawing, write-ups, statue. means written form. Okay. So let's understand it. So in slander, what happens is that defamation is done through words or gestures. Okay, and in libel, how it is done? It is done that through writing a letter, as I have given you the example over here. It's done through writing, so it will come in libel form. And if a person has spoken something wrong about another person in a meeting or in a crowd, so that will come in slander form. Okay. So now let's see what are essentials in this. So first one is statement shall be false, and second one is defer to the plaintiff, and third one is it should be derogatory. So derogatory means some words that are used to disrespect someone. Okay, words that disrespect the other person. Okay, so fourth one is it should be published to the third party. So what are some differences in this is that the statement should be truth, and second is fair comment in public interest, and fair comment should be fair based on fact that are truth. Okay, and it should be public interest. So now let's understand nervous shock. So in this, first let's understand this through an example. So you can take an example that a pregnant lady was going in the market, and there occurred an accident, and she went there and she saw some blood, due to which a stillborn child was born. Okay, so in this case you can say that there was nervous shock. Okay, so let's see what are the elements for this. So first one is psychiatric. Second one is it should be emotional, and it should be sudden grief. And the third one is it should be recognizable mental illness. Okay, so let's see what are the essentials in this. So the first one is it should be shocking event, and second one it should be sufficiently proximate, and the third one should it is reasonable, foreseeable harm. Okay, so let's write the same example. You can see a pregnant lady went to the market. There occurred an accident. She saw the blood, and a stillborn child was born. So now let's study malicious prosecution. So first let's see the meaning for malicious. Malicious means wrongful, and prosecution means criminal proceedings. So in this case what happens is that there is criminal proceeding initiated against a person, and that causes harm to that person. So you can write it like this. So wrongful initiation of criminal proceedings which causes harm to that person. And second important is that it should be intentional. Okay, so let's understand it through an example. A prosecutor filed a charge sheet against the political rival. Okay, so over here you can see that the politician was innocent, but still the police officer arrested him in this case. So you can see it was wrongful. Okay, and it was intention that he had to take the revenge, so he arrested the person. Okay, so the essentials in this is, first is it should be intentionally done, and the second one is without probable cause, and third one is suit must be false. Next one is must be dismissed by the court, and next one is the person suffered a damage. So now let's study negligence. So in negligence, what happens is that you had some legal duty, but you breached it. Breached it over here means that you do not follow, or you do not do an agreement. You broke it. So you can write it as, this refers to the breach of a legal duty to take care, which results in damage to the plaintiff. So now let's see the essentials in this. So the first one is failure to use ordinary cause. Second one is an action or lack of action. And the third one is result in damage. So let's see what are the ingredients in this. So it was duty of care, breach of duty, damage. So let's understand it through an example. So what happens in this case is that the man bought a ginger beer for his another friend, and when he drank the content, he just poured the remaining content, and he saw that the dead snails were popping in it, and he sued the manufacturer for it because there was negligence in this case. So now let's write it. So you can write, a man bought ginger beer for his friend. After drinking the remaining content, he poured, and he noticed that dead snails were popping in it, and in this case they sue the manufacturer because there was negligence in this case. So in this case there is one legal maxim, so that is res ipsa locutor. So what does this means is that things means itself, and this means to speak. So you can see things speak for itself. So let's understand this case through example. So what happens is this, that during the operation the surgeon left the knife in the patient's stomach. Okay, so you can write it. During operation the surgeon left the knife in the patient's stomach. So now let's study nuisance. So in this case what happens is that a person is using his or her property in a way that annoys another person. Okay, so now let's write it. So you can write unreasonable use of property causes harm such as damage or inconvenience. Okay, and the third one is it can be to anyone, it can be to a group or individual. So there is one legal magazine. So the legal magazine is this: sic uter to Italian non leaders. Okay, so what does this mean is, so this means so, and this means your, and this means utilize, not injury. Okay, so what does this mean is that utilize your property in such a way that it shall not injure others. Okay, so there are some elements in this. So noise, smell, litter, and behavior, and water, fumes, animals, or dust particles. Okay, so you can see that nuisance is divided into two parts. First one is private and the second one is public. Okay, so in private nuisance there is harm to only one person. Okay, but in public nuisance there is harm to many person. Okay, so now let's understand it through an example. So for private you can take that a person A next door lives person B, and he is a teacher. Okay, this person is a teacher. Okay, and he gives tuitions, and so the children who comes to study over here makes a lot of noise, and this annoys person A. Okay, so over here you can see that only person A is getting annoyed over here, so this will come in private. Okay, and now let's see example for public. So you can see that a person A gives food to street dogs in front of a public park, due to which other persons are unable to visit the park because they are scared of the street dogs. Okay, so now let's see the elements in this. So first one is wrongful interference, and the second one is interference with the enjoyment, and the third one is there is some damage. Okay, and there are some differences in this. So first one is prescription right. So over here what does this mean is that there is some written permission. Okay, and second one is permission by the government. So it will be valid for 20 years. Okay, so for 20 years there will be no tort. Okay, and elements for this is it should be openly done, it should have knowledge, and third one is it should be consented. Okay, so now let's study trespass. So what does trespass means? Trespass means that a person is entering into someone's land without their permission. Okay, so there are two types. So trespass can be to land, trespass to land, and second one is trespass to body. Okay, so now first let's study what is trespass to land. So trespass to land means that we are entering into someone's land without their permission. Okay, so you can write interference with possession of land or property who without lawful justification. Okay, so now you might be wondering what does this possession means. So first let's understand there are owner and there is one possession. Okay, so owner means whose land it is. Okay, who owns it. Okay, who owns the land. Okay, and possession means the person who is living over there. Okay, the person who is staying over the land. Okay, you can see such as tenant. Okay, so let's see that there are some cases when the tenant does not move out of the place. Okay, so what are some remedies? So first one is damages, means compensation has to be given from the tenant to the owner. Okay, and second one is injunction. So injunction means that there will be stay order from the court. Okay, and the next one is eject. Okay, so in this it means that we are forcefully throwing the person out. Okay, throwing the person out. Okay, so now let's see trespass to body. So the first one is assault. So in this case what happens is that there is no physical touch. Okay, we are just showing the fist or we are just showing the slap to the other person so that the other person feels scared. Okay, and so you can write attacking without causing injury. Okay, and the second one is battery. Okay, so in this case what happens is that there is actual physical touch. Okay, so like if you are showing the fist, so you are hitting the person. Okay, and if you are showing the slap, so that means you are slapping the person. Okay, so you can write use of force, and the second one is without lawful justice. Okay, and the third one is false imprisonment. False imprisonment. So in this case what happens is that there is a person who is innocent but still we have put that person behind the bars. Okay, so you can write total confinement without means of escaping, and there is risk of life. Okay, so there are some essentials in this. So the first one is actual and the second one is constructive. So today we'll be studying vicarious liability. So in this case what happens is that one party will be liable because the other party, or you can say the third party, has done something unlawful. So now let's study vicarious liability. So what happens in this case is that a person is liable because the other person or the third party has done some unlawful activity. Okay, so now let's write it. So you can write it is a situation in which one party is responsible because of the unlawful actions of the third party. Okay, so there are some situations. So the first one is master servant, second one is principal agent, and the third one is employer or employee. Okay, so now let's study first master and servant relation. So first of all, let us see who is in servant. Okay, who is servant? So the servant is a person who can be controlled and are given directions. Okay, and second one is who can be hired or fired by the master. So let's understand the situation through an example. So what happens is that there is a delivery boy who goes for delivering the packages. So during that course of employment, he causes an accident. Okay, so in this case the master will be liable because in this case the servant caused some unlawful activity. Okay, so you can write an example over here that a delivery man going for delivering goods caused an accident. So in this case you can see the master will be liable. Okay, so now let's understand principal and agent. So this you can understand that over in this case principal will be the one who is the master and agent is the one you can say he is the servant. Okay, so let's see. In this case what happened is that principal authorizes to do some act not as a servant but representing the principal. Okay, so in this case also if an agent does anything wrong, so the principal will be also be liable. Okay, so let's understand it through an example. So what happens in this case is that there is a person A who deposited 1 lakh rupees in a bank for transferring it to B. Okay, but C, who is the employee in the bank, he by fraud transferred the money to his wife. Okay, so over here you can see the principal is the bank. So here bank will also be liable because agent who is C over here had done some wrongful activity. Okay, so now let's write it. So you can write over example that a person A deposits rupees 1 lakh in a bank to transfer to B. Okay, but C by fraud transfers to his wife. Okay, so in this case you can see that the bank will also be liable. Okay,